into this week's look at the aftermath of Aftermath, as I've been calling it, or things that we can glean from this book as we've been going through. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, go ahead and click on this and it'll take you to a playlist of our past episodes. Basically, we're going through and looking at this book in gross detail. Not the gross details, though there are some details that are gross. Today, we are looking at chapter 9, the fourth interlude on Na-lol, or Na-LOL, and then we are looking at chapter 10. When I was taking my notes for this, I had the classic writing in black, and then my pen died, and then the rest of it's in blue. So that's like hardcore note-taking right there. This is going to be a case, again, where the interludes are the most interesting part of all of this. How does my voice sound when I move my notebook over my microphone? Sorry. Easily distracted today. Alright, so chapter 9. Chapter 9, we are starting to meet this sort of dark council that Sloane is putting together. We kind of have her main rival, which is Pandion. I don't know, every time I see his name I just think Dandelion, and I don't know why he's not particularly flowery. But he's like that Imperial, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. He's that Imperial. He's the Imperial that wants all of the power cookies, and doesn't want anybody else to have power cookies, and he's like annoying about it. But he's also, I don't think he's particularly bright. There's nothing here that really tells me he's not bright, but he just feels like one of those guys that wants power and doesn't really have a whole lot to back it up. So we're gonna see how that goes. We have the character of Tashu, and Tashu is one of my favorite characters in this book series. Tashu is just a nutty dark side aficionado. Like, he likes dark side stuff. He's not really a Force user, and he's also kind of crazy. So it's great. Everything about him is amazing. And then we meet Crassus and Shale. There's not a whole lot in their personality right now. They both seem a bit more timid. But I think we're going to get to know them more as we go on. But that's really the long and the short of that passage, is just kind of getting the lay of the political landscape that Sloane is trying to navigate. And this takes us to the fourth interlude on Na-lol, which I'm probably saying super wrong. Here we see Mon Mothma. Now, Mon Mothma will actually become a much more major player in books to come, but here she kind of gets introduced to us, or she does get introduced to us through a whatchamacallit, interlude. I just said that word like 3 seconds ago. So this interlude, Mon Mothma is on a planet. She has 2 advisors, kind of angel and devil, over her shoulder, and what gets revealed is that she wants to relinquish the emergency powers of her position as Chancellor. So she's currently Chancellor of the New Republic. What I thought was interesting here is that, unless I read it wrong, the implication is that the Chancellor has emergency powers because Chancellor Palpatine had emergency powers before he became Emperor, or literally they just meant that rule was there still because they just adopted the Republic bylines. I was a little foggy on that, but I still thought that was kind of a cool connection. But Mothma wants to get rid of these emergency powers. Like, she is so ready to be done with like one ruler. She wants to get back to democracy and all the cool democracy hangouts and that sort of business. And she wants to get rid of all of this because she's afraid that the New Republic will also become the Empire. And this is really interesting. It's a very valid concern for her. This becomes a very interesting debate throughout the book, is that she wants to demilitarize the New Republic. She wants planets to kind of defend themselves, and then they'll have a small peacekeeping force when planets can't defend themselves. And that's basically the military might of the New Republic. There's a lot going on in this debate. And basically, she has the one advisor who's all for this, and she has the one advisor who would like the New Republic to be a military state, basically. And I was really following Mon Mothma's logic until she gets to the point of she wants to cut the military by 90%. No, you didn't mishear me. 90. I read it several times to make sure I was picking up on that. This is highly unrealistic because I've never known anyone in the government to want to cut any part of the government by 90%. But also, I just thought that was that's very abrupt, right? Like, usually when a government raises a thing in a program or lowers a thing in the program, they do it gradually. And she's like, no, 90%, gone, done. Goodbye. This is highly noble, because a lot of times what happens when you do things gradually is gradually becomes nothing changes at all. So I can understand this, but They are, like, actually still at war, though, I think. Like, the Empire is there, right? Like, Wedge is out looking for the Empire. Like, they're still a thing, and it's not just that we know they're a thing, like, Wedge knows they're a thing, which means the military must know they're a thing, and she wants to cut the military by 90%. And this is where I kind of started to lose her, and this is actually something really interesting. So, both myself and Professor Django have read this book before, and we had a lot of really interesting discussions because we both reacted to Mon Mothma very differently. So one of these days, I'd love to get him to kind of opine his thoughts on this, just because I think you guys would find it amusing to see where we differ on this. I've said in past videos that Nora Wexley, she left her son, to go and fight in the military. And to me, Nora is a person that is doing the right things in the wrong way. Case in point, she's trying to get her son off planet and she drugged him, right? She's doing things that maybe right is probably the incorrect way to say it, because I don't think it's objectively correct that she's trying to get her son off world, but it's certainly, you certainly can't argue the morality of wanting to take her son away from a place she thinks is dangerous, but drugging him is probably not the way to do it. So Nora I described as a person who's doing good things in bad ways. Similarly, I think Mon Mothma is doing correct things at wrong times. I think the notion of taking down the New Republic military as much as she wants it to is certainly a valid discussion to have, and I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But doing it so abruptly, you know, maybe it's just because I know, maybe because I'm the reader and I can read from Sloane's perspective and I know what's up, that this is a bad idea, but I just feel like that abruptness is a bad idea. But there's also another thing going on here that I found really interesting. The angel on the shoulder basically looks at the devil on the shoulder, for lack of a better word, because the one guy is going on about how, no, we need to keep the military up, and what are you doing, and, you know, we need to... He's basically going on an ends justify the means kind of speech. And the so-called angel on the shoulder says, I'm sure the Empire would love to have you, as a slam towards him, saying that he's expressing opinions that are very, very imperial, and not in line with the ideals of the New Republic. I don't like language like that. I really don't like language like that. I think the moment you start drawing lines in the sand with people who are your allies, you're getting into dangerous territory. You're getting into very divisive groupthink, and I don't like it. Even if the person is making a good point, I don't like it. It's basically the equivalent of me making a Hitler comparison, right? Like, oh, you have an opinion that's very centralized and militaristic, so you're a Nazi. The same kind of rule, and the same way here on Earth, the moment you start bringing up Nazis, you've over-exaggerated. I feel like the moment you bring up the Empire, you've kind of over-exaggerated, so that was kind of my reaction to that passage. But I actually, in my notes, I actually wrote out a thing. I was getting so into it when I was reading this, but I basically said, this passage might be one of the most important to the book so far. Here, idealisms collide. Like, it's not just the idealistic pacifist or whatnot that you'd usually see. It's idealistic to think that military power does not create a power-hungry person, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's naive and it's idealistic to think that you can keep a military and always wield that military effectively all the time in the right way. It is also really idealistic and naive to think that the war is over. Especially understand that up until this point, what we've been reading over and over and over again is that the war didn't end, right? That the Clone War became the Galactic Civil War, became this. And it's just one war that never stopped. We're getting kind of two ideas going on in the book. We're getting the book that is reinforcing to us chapter by chapter by chapter that the war never ended before, and it really hasn't ended now. I mean, literally on the cover it says, the war is not over. And now we have Mon Mothma who's like, no, I've just decided that the war is over, because you get to just decide when wars are over, which involves all parties agreeing on that note, by the way. I don't know, without getting too intense on it, I guess, it's just, I kind of want to know what you guys think. I think I am biased because I've read all 3 books and I know where this is going, and I know it's a mistake to cut your military down by 90% because I know what's lurking out there in the shadows. So it's a little bit harder for me to kind of really get into this. If you are out there following along and you haven't really read the book, or you are out there reading the book for the first time, I'd really like to know what your thoughts are now at this point, other than I guess I've just spoiled it for you, that it's a bad idea. But I guess it's a trilogy. It's guess what? It's not going to be a trilogy about how they all raised goats together or something. So surprise! But I would be kind of curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. Again, not slamming a pacifist ideal. I think Mon Mothma has the right idea. I think she has good ideas on how to not let the New Republic become the Empire. I think she's just rash, and she's trying to get there too fast, and that it's not the time or the place for what she wants to achieve, even though what she wants to achieve is a good goal for her to have, if that makes sense. And then chapter 10, we'll kind of go over real quickly. The big part of chapter 10 is it goes back and forth between Singer and Jazz, and we find out that they have met before, sort of. They haven't really met as much as their fates collided. I like this because one thing in Star Wars is always, it's a small galaxy after all. Yeah, you know, people kind of bump into each other, and then re-bump into each other, and re-bump into each other, so it's kind of like connecting that Singer and Jazz are supposed to be in each other's lives in some capacity. The interesting bit here to me is that Singer is a loyalty officer. His whole job is to sniff out people who are not loyal to the Empire, and he deserted on Endor. He deserted on Endor before the second Death Star was even destroyed, it seems, based off of where this is hitting in the timeline. And that is going to go a lot into his character as we see going forward, and that's just kind of an important note for him. Oh, and there was one bit in there that I really like. Singer sees Jazz, and he goes, "Oh, she's a Sabrak, or is it a Dathomirian, or is it an Iridonian?" He's never been sure about the difference, and that's just a really funny in-joke. That's a super insider baseball joke, and I really appreciated it. But yeah, that's what I got. Let's look at, if I had planned this better, I would have actually gone through chapter 11, because it's literally chapter 11, and then part 2. I didn't see that, so oh well. So let's just go ahead and read 11, 12, and the interlude. The 5th interlude is on Uytir, Uyter, for whatever that's worth for everyone. So yeah, 11, which will take us into part 2, 12, and then the first interlude there, Uytir. And that'll be for next week. And we'll continue on from there. If you've been following the series as it comes out, I might be moving this to Tuesdays for uploads, because we may be moving our streamcast to Mondays, just as a housekeeping note. If you're not watching these as they come out, that meant nothing to you, and I'm sorry. Other than that, I will talk to you guys next week. I love chatting with you guys. Please leave a comment. Make sure you're following us at Port Haven Forums, and visit port-haven.com for even more, and we'll talk to you soon.